everybody. This is Mike Hittner with Historic Point Basse Update, and today joining me to my right is Larry Knudsen. Larry, welcome.
Good day.
We have a special treat for all of you folks. We're recording this and filming this out in our bunkhouse. Our bunkhouse is our latest building here. It was dedicated about 2 years ago. It's about 30 feet long, maybe, and about 18-20 feet wide, something like that. And we're going to get you an idea of what it looks like after I get done talking here a little bit. Then we're going to go and kind of pan the building so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Because I know some of you folks watch us on a regular basis on public access, but you don't have the ability, or you can't come out because of different issues that you might have. You can't come and see us out here, so it'll give you a chance to see some of the things that we have here that you don't have an opportunity to see. Bunkhouse was built by all volunteers, and most of the materials actually came from the site. When you get a chance, you'll see some of the logs that are kind of the rafters and support beams up above us, and that was our red pine that we skinned out here and dried out a little bit and put up. And so it's kind of a labor of love here from our work on the site by our Monday morning group, supplemented with a few extra people during the need there to get things done. So Jim, the cameraman, will show you around the room now. So you got a good idea of what the bunkhouse looks like. It's really a sweet building. It turned out even better than I could have imagined it when we first originally talked about it. But today Larry and I are really going to talk about our Point Basse Pioneer Festival. That's our oldest event that we do on site here. It started in our first year, 1986, when we had control of the site. And we did it, and at that time we only had the acreage that was on this side of the creek, so we had about 7 acres. Basically, was Wakely Road was our border, and then the creek was our border, and just the land within the creek here. And so we put on the first festival. In fact, the first few years we didn't even do our own food. We had Port Edwards Lions. We had a good association with them, still have a great association with them. We work with them with our ice cutting when they do the Nepco Lake fishery, and they provided food for the first couple of years for us. So we've come a long way. Now we do almost all those things in-house by ourselves. But our Pioneer Festival is on June 8th and 9th. It's a Saturday and Sunday, and it's at the site here, and it's a great event because we have a lot of crafters and people doing different skilled old-time activities such as blacksmithing and things of that sort. So you can come out, and it's a great time to actually become a member. Now, when we talk a lot of times about it's $5 admission for the festival for adults, $2 for children, but you can become a member as a family. Say you've got 2 or 3 children and they all are interested in what's going on here. Mom and dad come with them, $25. After almost the first event, it's paid for, and then after that you can come to the Whodunit, the Fall Harvest Fair, the Spirit Walks, the Heritage Holiday. All the sites on all the events that are going on site here are free after that. So think of a membership. When you come through the gate, they'll have those membership forms available. $25 for a family, $15 for a single person. And think of getting that, because once you're a member, you know, all events on site are free for you after that. So it's a great bonus for everybody. But it'll be June 8th and 9th. It's a Saturday and Sunday, and we go 10 to 5 on Saturday and 10 to 4 on Sunday. To give you a little list of some of the people that we have coming and some of the things they're going to do, I'm just going to read off the list because for sake of not missing anybody. We're going to have a couple. We have our resident blacksmith, plus we have another gentleman coming in doing blacksmithing. He does a little different form of blacksmithing, so that's always interesting. I just love, I think you, Larry, too, have sometimes you just go and watch those blacksmiths. I can do it for sometimes a half an hour just watching what they're doing, you know, and that sort of thing. We got the gentleman, now you can explain a little bit, Larry. This guy does brain tanning. Explain a little bit about brain tanning, where they tan using the brains of the animal, deer in this case, or whatever it might be.
Well, when you harvest the animal, if you want to keep the hide and make clothing out of it, or whatever you want to use the hide for, they have commercial tanning, and that's totally different. But the old type of tanning that they did back in the 1830s and before is they would, when they harvest the animal, they take the hide off, and then they really scrape the hide and get all the meat and the fat off the hide very carefully. And then they take the brain from the animal that they harvested, and they mix that with water and make a solution. And then they take and they put that on that hide. And then that hide, that chemicals that are in that brain, I'm sorry, I forgot what the chemical is called in there, but there's a chemical in there that will help make that hide soft. And it will keep the hair from falling off the hide as well. But you rub that on, and then you take the hide and you rub it on a stick or something, or a piece of log, and that then works that brain in, and it also makes the hide extremely pliable and plush, if you will. And then a lot of people will smoke it as well. That again, smoking it after you brain tan it will help preserve it. Plus it gives it a different patina, you know, having that.
Do you think, Larry, that the brain tanning was probably learned by the early pioneers from the Native Americans, probably the ones that probably knew about that, huh?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of tanning in the Middle East during the medieval ages and things like that. They had different tannings, and they used different chemicals. One of the biggest chemicals, I think, was urine that they used for tanning hides back then. Okay, but in America, they use the brain tanning method, and it makes a wonderful leather.
It's kind of nice to watch the whole process, because we've had a few people over the years do it here, and from start to finish, it's quite a long process. It isn't a quick fix or anything like you can do like in a couple hours period. It takes, you know, a couple days worth of time to do it, but it's kind of unique to know that that animal has that right amount of brain matter with the chemicals that are existent in that can tan its own hide,
right?
Which is wonderful when you think about it.
They say, you know, the old adage is that the Indians would sit and chew on that hide to make it soft. Well, my understanding, that's not true. They did the brain tanning, and it's a whole lot better than sitting chewing on the hide.
There'd be a lot of enzymes out of the saliva that'll take to break that hide down.
The way they did that would be to work that hide, to work that leather, and that's what makes it soft.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. So then we'll also have cast iron cooking. And probably a good opportunity to mention is one of our special events on Saturday, on June 8th, is our cast iron cooking contest. And that goes from 12 to 4, and it's an invitation. Anybody who'd like to do it from the outside, or a lot of the participants that are camping here and the residents that are here will do some cooking. And then you buy a bowl. We have handmade bowls, the Nakusa pottery class, their fine arts class, under the direction of Lori Tempest, makes the bowls. So they're all hand-thrown bowls, and then we sell those for $5. And then if you got a bowl, you can go taste when they have the contest. You're the judges for the contest, so you go around and taste a little. They have different categories. They got a main dish, they got a dessert, they got breads, that sort of thing. Larry, I think you've taken part in that.
A word of warning: get there early and get your bowl, because they sell out.
Yeah, we generally have about 24 or so bowls, and sometimes, you know, a lot of people just come and buy them and they don't even do the judging.
Yeah.
But they're beautiful bowls. They're worth a lot more than that, but it's a good opportunity to do that. So it's Saturday only, 12 to 4. They start cooking at 12 o'clock. They got to be done by 4, and then they have forms that will be handed out to everybody. And you go around from, you know, they'll have the site back by the cabin, and you'll go around and you'll judge those different food types, whether it's dessert or main course or bread or whatever it happens to be, or pies, and then they'll judge it. And then we have a traveling trophy sort of thing. It's a cast iron frying pan, and it's got plaques for each year on there. I think last year, I believe it was Jean Pearson won it. She'll be back this year to kind of see if she can do it again, but they got plaques on there for about the last 7 or 8 years. And we're hoping to do is take all those recipes, people usually give us the recipes, and then put them together, and someday down the road, maybe in a year or two, we'll have a cookbook from the cast iron cooking contest, so it'll be kind of fun. So that's on Saturday 12 to 4, and 4 o'clock is the tasting. Some of the other events we're going to have here are snowshoe making. We have a local gentleman that helps with the parking, actually, Jeff Stewart. Yeah, him and his family do make snowshoes, all by hand. The work does beautiful snowshoes. And we've got muzzle loading and bullet casting. They heat up the lead and cast the bullets, and muzzle loading. And we've got tatting and needlework. Tatting is kind of a fine, I don't know, it's mostly ladies. They make those fine things like, I think, like doilies and things of that sort, and it's called tatting. And then we got, can't read mine, shoe shining. We got a gentleman here, Shine Shoes. He's from Baroka, Wisconsin, and he'll be up in the area in the front here by the bunkhouse here, and he'll be shining shoes. So bring your shoes along and bring a couple extra pairs. Let him shine them for you. He's a guy expert at it, and he likes to shine shoes. And then we got Southwest Navajo weaving on a original weaving thing, and a gentleman comes from, I think he's from Minnesota, and he does weaving a Navajo style, so it's a whole different style that we're not used to here. And he weaves, most of the time is using wool as the thing, and he weaves it, and you can watch him, he weaves it all by hand, and beautiful things that if you're interested in Native American art, this is Navajo weaving. And then we got one lady specializes in pie baking. And we have another woman who's coming doing toys and games with kids. So that'll be in our original area here near the barn and that area, where people will come in, and if the kids want to play some games or make some toys or work on toys and that sort of thing, that'll be a good opportunity for them to take part in it. And then we got history of 1776. We have a gentleman that dresses up and interprets as a early pioneer, a little bit earlier than we are, but that's okay. 1776, so he gives a little background and history on that. And then we've got a whip demonstration. Whip is in the front of the house on the riverside, and he'll do a whip demonstration depending on how much moisture and how he's feeling, because he's getting a little older now. And whip, folks, we've been doing this 34 years, all but 1 year. Whip has been here, 33 years out of that. He comes out of the Appleton area. And then we have rope making and what is it here? Paddle carving. A gentleman that's in the back corner over there, back by the cabin, he does rope making and paddle carving. So if you want to see some of those hand-carved paddles, he does that sort of thing. We have moccasin making. One lady's going to be making moccasins and doing sewing demonstrations, so that's always kind of interesting to see that. And there's one gentleman that'll be doing flint knapping. Now, you know, to make that flint, you got to take and you kind of keep breaking that down so you can make those flints that they use for arrowheads and spearheads and that sort of thing. So he's going to be flint knapping. He'll be out right next to the cabin in that area. And then we got alpaca. There's a lady from the Vesp area. She does alpaca spinning and weaving, and she'll be right around the bunkhouse area. And then we have a merchant, Ray Glazner from up in the Mosney area. He's coming down, and he's got kind of a merchandise. If you're looking for something, he's got shirts and he's got belts, and he's got all different sort of things. He's kind of a merchant, 1840s or 50s merchant that would have stuff for sale. So got a lot of those things going on. And let's not forget food. Now, Larry and I are great advocates of food, and they've got, in our own kitchen here, they're going to have all kinds of goodies. And I heard the menu this year is ham sandwiches, may with or without cheese, my understanding. We're going to have hot dogs, prairie dogs, which they take the fry bread and they put a wrapper around that hot dog, and they make it what they call a prairie dog. You can get them plain, just a regular hot dog with just a regular bun, or you can get that fry bread around there. And talking about fry bread, the fry bread is great. I think, Larry, you and I both enjoy that. You know, a little cinnamon, a little
You can tell
sugar.
I enjoy fried bread.
No matter which way it's made, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a couple gals, that's all they do is make fry bread all day long. And we've got bratwurst, so if you're hungry for bratwurst or something like that, we got lemonade, homemade lemonade. We've got some soda from Stevens Point Brewery. Unfortunately, folks, we don't have any alcohol in it. It's the root beer. It's the cherry sodas and that sort of thing. It is not alcoholic. We've actually prided ourselves in the 34 years we've done this, folks. We've never taken a dime of money from any beer companies. You know, we could, what I call is selling out. Get the big banners up there and Miller High Life or whatever beer it is, and they sponsor a lot and they give you a lot of money, but we decided this is a family event and it's for you and your children to come here, and we don't want to see any drinking going on because it could be an issue, and it sometimes does become an issue.
We hope you get your high from the event.
Yeah, the event itself, and visiting Larry in the bunkhouse or me wherever I'm in on the site, that's where we're going to get our high, is from that sort of thing. And then we got cookies and cakes and all kinds of goodies and chips and that sort of thing. So bring your appetite with you. When you come here, you can stay the whole day because we got the food, the entertainment, the different things going on in different spots. So realistically, you should plan on probably a minimum of 2.5, 3 hours. You know, you also have in the 3-bay shed, in the ice house part of the 3-bay shed, they'll be making ice cream. So we get the cream and we add the sugar to it, and then we put different flavors, and then we ask a lot of times the kids to help us out cranking that hand ice cream maker. We take the ice from the ice house to chip it up with a little salt around the edge of the ice cream maker. As it turns, it gets colder and colder, and usually about a half an hour, Larry, something like that.
We had a really good ice harvest this year, so we got some really nice ice. Typically in the past, the ice has been clear on the bottom and then the top is cloudy, and you get rid of that cloudy. This year I think we used the whole cube because it was just wonderful ice this year.
We had you know, as we
got
know,
a lot of it in the storehouse.
Yeah, over in the ice house, so you can come and make ice cream. I know the gentlemen that work in the 3-bay shed, in the carpenter shop, or the Sawyer's Bay, will have a lot of activities over there that you can have some hand-on, some draw shaves on the schnitzel bunk or the carving horses. There's lots of things there. We're supposed to have a horse here, I think, from the Babcock area, from the riding area out there that works with handicapped and children and autistic children and everything. We're supposed to have that horse here on both days, so that'll be kind of nice. Have some live animal here, and we got one of our members is having a quilt hand stitched. It'll be over by the warehouse, and they're going to do hand stitching on both days, an old quilt, and putting it back together, and hand stitching, all hand stitched on this quilt. So that'll be a beautiful project to watch. On Sunday, we'll have soap making in the backyard, right behind the kitchen area. A gal that has done a lot of soap making herself over the years. She'll be doing soap making on Sunday. And then up in the upstairs of the house, from 1 to 4 on Saturday, Sue Semro, the person that donated the barn loom for us here at Historic Point Basse, is going to be doing a demonstration on the barn loom upstairs from 1 to 4 on Saturday. So if you can come up there, it's a huge barn loom upstairs there. You can see how she does it. I think she's going to bring a few of her things along that she's done in the past, and maybe a few things for sale if you're interested in some things that come off the barn loom. But lots of activities. Hawk throwing right behind the blacksmith shop. We got a tomahawk throwing tree trunk there that you throw at. We're going to have that manned a couple hours each day where you can do for some hawk throwing back there. A lot of activities for you here. The Heritage Garden. We've got a great group of ladies out here from the Master Gardeners Group. They've just planted the garden this past weekend, over the Memorial Day weekend, and also sowed the field. They've got a field with some wheat in it, and they're going to plant broomcorn soon. And you can see all this stuff. Plus, don't forget, when you're up by the schoolhouse, they've got a beautiful quilt garden, and it's designed with different colored flowers or foliage, in their design of a quilt, and so they also have some quilts on display and that sort of thing. So the Master Gardeners, I can't say enough for them. They've really turned this site around as far as gardening and all those sort of things. Plus, when you come here, I can proudly say Larry and I and Don and Jim and Johan and a number of others of us have built a new fence around the heritage garden here by the house. And it's built out of red cedar, and hopefully it'll last for 25 years, and we got a barrier to keep the rodents out and the rabbits and things that like to get in gardens and raise a little cane. But hopefully now this will be a great. We got about 4 or 5 boards left to do on that, and hopefully we'll be done by the time you come.
When we were building the fence, part of the rhubarb was a little bit in the way, so we had to relocate a little bit of that rhubarb.
Yeah, and what they mean by relocate is we ate it, and according to Larry, he ate a lot of rhubarb in his days,
Yeah.
and he says this is naturally very sweet.
It was the best, sweetest rhubarb I think I've ever had.
Normally Larry and his brother
And
used to
ladies
go.
do a wonderful job out there.
They used to be dipping it in sugar bowl all the
Yeah.
time, but this time they didn't have to do that. So.
No, it was
And I think Don and I have had fortune to go over there once in a while. We nip off a little of the asparagus that's growing and get some of that asparagus to eat, so that's great too. Another great event we have on both days at 2 o'clock is Tea at 2. Mrs. Witherspoon, an English lady, comes here and she puts on a whole tea ceremony sort of thing and talks about each of the teas, gives you 3 or 4 to try and some little cookies or something to try with it, and it's at 2 o'clock on both days. You don't want to miss it. It's just east of the food tent. You won't miss it. There'll be a lot of little tables set up under a double tarp up above them, and it's tea at 2. So 2 o'clock, it's what you call, in the parlance of drinking tea, this is called low tea. Tea at 2 is low tea. High tea is like at 4 o'clock where you're getting more of a meal. This is just a little snack and to taste the different teas. So that'll give you a little idea of what we got going on down here. It's going to be a great event. Don't forget Saturday, June 8th and Sunday, June 9th. Saturday's 10 to 4 and Saturday's 10 to 5 and Sunday's 10 to 4. And admission is $5 for adults, $2 for students. We want you to come out and have a great time. Visit Larry or myself or any other characters on the site, plus all these other crafters and all these other people we talked about, because it's going to be a lot of things to see. It's our biggest event of the year. It's a fundraiser for us also, because not all this stuff happens because we like it to happen, because we have to raise the money to keep the site up. So I hope to see you then, and thank you, Larry, for joining me this afternoon, and everybody out there in TV land, good to see you again. See you soon.
Everyone out in TV land. I am Diane Nickel, and here today with me is Dawn Baker, and we work in the house out at Historic Point Basse. So Dawn, what's going to happen now on June 8th and 9th?
Well, we will be doing some cooking or some baking in the house. Hopefully it's going to be cornbread and corn sticks. We have several different cast iron pans that we can now bake them in. In addition to that, we're going to try to churn butter for the very first time. Now at the site we've had butter churns, but we've just never tried it, so this is going to be an experiment, and we're going to give it a shot on Saturday.
Sounds like fun.
Let's hope so.
Now I understand that we're going to be using, as we all know, that Historic Point Basse is 1840 to 1860 time frame, and we're actually going to be using a butter churn of that time frame. And it's about how tall? About this
About that tall.
tallish?
Yeah, and probably
Okay.
about, what, so big around?
Wow, that'll be good. And what is it made out of?
What is it made of?
Kind of pottery type thing?
Oh, it's like a ceramic type.
Ceramic. And how do you make what's the process of making this butter? We're going to put what into this
You're going to
churn?
put cream into the churn, and then it has a special kind of paddle that you just keep kind of moving up and down, and it stirs it and churns it until it actually turns into butter. It's kind of like over whipping whipped cream, just the slow old-fashioned method.
Okay. Now, will our guests that come out to Historic Point Basse Pioneer Fest, will they have a chance to try this too?
Well, that's what we're hoping. As in the past, we've actually done little containers with cream and let the kids shake them to make their own butter. This time we're going to try to let each person that kind of comes in get a chance to move the churn handle up and down a few times and kind of see what it's like.
All right. Now, once we make the butter in this this churn, this device, how are we going? Do we get to sample it?
Yeah, we're going to try to get some churned before people are there so that everybody gets a chance to have some. And we're going to then, once we have that butter churned, be able to take that out there and use it for the samples in the afternoon.
Okay. So what are we going to use to sample it with? Are you going to do something special for us?
I'm going to make homemade cornbread. We have the traditional cornbread pans that look like cobs of corn that you bake it in. We also have a breadstick pan which makes long slender cylinders kind of it. And I've also planned on making some just in a traditional muffin pan so that they can each have a sample, but basically as finger food.
Ah, great. Now, you said you're going to make it out there. How are you going to cook it?
It gets cooked in the traditional old wood stove out there. Got a great big nice stove. And in terms of that, you know, we go out in the morning and we open up our house and then we start our fire. And then from there you keep feeding it all day, which is kind of a unique trick in itself because you're just so used to going to your oven and turning on the timer and turning on the thermostat and saying, okay, my oven's at 350 degrees and I have to bake these for 15 minutes. Well, that's not as easy said as done out on an old wood stove. Now, we do have a little thermostat inside, a little thermometer inside, so we have a clue, but you also have very distinctive hot spots in your stoves, which you don't have as much in your traditional one at home.
Okay, sounds great. Now, you obviously are incapacitated this time, being out at Wakely at an event. So who's going to help you? And how is that going to work?
We have several people that are going to be out there to help out. As long as I remain on the first floor, I should be pretty good. So we do have someone else that will be interpreting the second floor. We have a lady that will be up there for part of the day, actually working our big rug loom that is in the upstairs of the house. We also have a couple of women that will be there to help out. We have a lady that is supposed to be there to show us some spinning, and maybe you let people have some hands-on tries at that. In addition to that, we have some other people that are just going to be in the parlor to do children's activities and talk about the parlor. And then we also have an extra person that will be trying to be in the main house, and they'll be learning about the house and the fire for the future.
Very good. Now, you talked a little bit about some other activities that's going in the house, so let's elaborate a little bit on the parlor. The parlor is an extra room in the house, and what we kind of, in our home now, would be kind of the living room. But a parlor was special back in the 1800s, and we're going to have Janet there, and she's going to be helping making everyone can do this, to make a church pew doll. Now, a church pew doll is kind of special, and what it is when the ladies in 1800 would take their children to church on Sunday, the little tiny ones would start to fuss and act up. So every man and lady would have a handkerchief in their pocket. So what you do is you take your handkerchief out and you would put a little piece of sugar, like a little, we would call it sugar cubes of today's world, but back then sugar came in a cone. So they'd break off a little piece of that cone and put it into their handkerchief and tie it in a special mannerism to make like the very first pacifier for the child. And anyone who comes out to the house on Pioneer Fest can go in and they can actually make a church pew doll that they can take with them. What do you think about that?
Well, it'll be fun.
That will. And also I think she's going to be making what's called Twizzlers. Twirlers, we're not really sure what the name of these are. And what they are is they're a piece of wood, a piece of a branch with two holes poked in them. And then you put some yarn, some wool yarn, through these holes and you'd spin it, and there's a special way to make them sing. And Jan will be happy to teach all of you how to make these little toys that they had in the 1800s and how to make them all sing, so you all can go home with that. Now, you also mentioned a little bit about maybe the upstairs area that you can't go to, obviously, right now. Dawn is usually our cook, one of our cooks out at Historic Point Basse home, the Wakely home, and that's the original house of the Wakeleys that they actually built, and that is the original foundation and home. So upstairs we're going to have a spinner. Erin is going to be upstairs this year, and she's going to be bringing her own spinning wheel, and she'll teach you some techniques on spinning. Erin's new to Historic Point Basse, so this will be her very first event that she'll be out there with us. So we're excited to have Erin with us. If you have any questions, or if you would like to attempt to spin, I'm sure that you could talk to Erin and see what that's all about and how she does it. And in the other room, as Dawn mentioned, we do have our big barn loom, and that is a hand-hewn wooden loom that was donated to us by a gal, and her name is Sue Semerole. And we're very honored this year to have her actually come and demonstrate her own rug loom to people. And if you would like to come in and get a few tips, if you know how to loom on a rug loom, you can ask her for a few tips that she has on how to use this particular one. If you would actually like to try it, I'm sure that you can give a whack at it and see how it's done. So that's what's happening upstairs. We're going to be having the rug loom people up there working the whole weekend. So if you can't make it on Saturday from noon until 4 when Sue is there, we'll have people on the rug loom the entire weekend to ask questions, and you can actually try it yourself. So what else is happening?
They will be also showing the room, the other room upstairs.
Oh yes, I forgot about that.
We've got the bedroom upstairs. Does have some of the beds with straw stuffed mats, patchwork quilts. We also have various other things like a 1800s hot water bottle, which does not look like anything around here. We have a drying rack that was typical of the period, so that they could hang their clothes at the end of the day to dry out the hems, or the boys, you know, their sweaty shirts for the next day. I also show a rope bed, which is typical of the period. You didn't have box springs like today. You had crisscrossed ropes tied to a frame, and we also explain how that worked and how you had to tighten them, and also how every year you have to go out and restuff your mattresses.
Indeed. Now I also thought that when I was passing through one event, I heard something about bed bugs.
Oh yeah, and that was something, you know, they do have the saying, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. Well,
and I bet if they come out to see us, they'll learn all about that.
Oh yeah,
upstairs.
definitely. It was a whole different time than now.
Yes, that's what I thought. Now, oh, you mentioned the boys' sweaty clothes and the girls' sweaty clothes too, because did they do laundry every day like we do today?
No, they did not, and they did not have enough clothes that you could do that. Generally, most people only had a couple sets of clothing, probably one for Sunday best and one for work clothes, and if they were lucky, they might have a second set of work clothes. So laundry was probably typically done about once a week. So they, definitely wanted to try to keep their clothes as usable as possible throughout that week. And I'm sure that the men's shirts probably weren't really wonderful at the end of that week.
I think you're right. Now, I think at Historic Point Basse, if you come out on Saturday or Sunday during the festival, we'll have a laundry day set up for you to actually play with the laundry and hang it up on our clothesline that we have. And we'll have some dainties there for you to wash and to hang. Does that sound pretty right?
Yep. Kids, especially on hot days, think that that's a really interesting activity.
Indeed, yes. Now, besides the house, we have the master gardeners who have a garden out there. It's an heirloom garden. And they just completed, the menfolk just completed putting up a new fence. Have you seen the new fence yet?
No, I haven't, just due to the fact that I can't really get around the site too well.
That's true. Well, it's a difference. It is an actual 1800 style fence this time. In the past it was not, and that started to fall apart, so it was necessary to build a new one, and they decided to go with an 1800 style fencing. So I find that exciting. So you can come out and see how that has changed and talk to some master gardeners and see what they have planted in their gardens this year. And what other kind of garden does the master gardener have out there?
I know up by the schoolhouse they generally have both, they think, a butterfly garden and is it a patchwork garden?
I think it's called a quilt garden.
Quilt garden, that they actually take a quilt design from that time frame and kind of try to replicate it with patches of flowers.
Yes, that's always exciting to see, and they do it so meticulously that when you look at it from up on the stairs and you can look down on it, you can see the patchwork that they're depicting with plants. And at first I didn't know that they could do such a thing, but it is turning out wonderful. Now, what's happening in our warehouse? This year we're going to have something special in the warehouse, and we're going to try and have a quilting bee. One of our members of Historic Point Basse, Kathy Albert, is in charge of getting that quilting bee up and running. And in the 1800s, they didn't have a Walmart, and they didn't have stores they could go and buy bedding. They had to make their own. So when the clothes became more and holey, they would cut little pieces out to make quilts. Once the quilt top is done and completed, you had to put in a batting, which was wool, or a cotton batting, and then a backing. And what they would do then is that all the ladies from the whole area would come together and they would help quilt this bedding piece of quilting. And that was always a fun thing for the ladies back then, because they didn't have telephone or TV, and this was one of their ways they could communicate with each other and just have a good old-fashioned gossip. So we're looking forward to that out there, and that should be exciting. We've never tried this out at Historic Point Basse before, and we actually have some 1800 quilt frames that we're going to be utilizing. And we hope to have all of you out there, and each one of you could put a couple stitches into our quilt, so we can say that the whole community helped us make this quilt. Upstairs, as Dawn mentioned, there are quilts upstairs in the bedroom area, and these are antique quilts. It's fascinating to see an antique quilt as to the quality of stitching that was done on them, also the quality of fabric. This is one of the ways that historians look at fabric from the past as to what's in their quilts, because the quilts are retained from year to year and generation to generation. Nothing was thrown out. And I've attended a few of the classes that teach you about fabric and about quilting. And this is fascinating, just fascinating to me. So I hope to see all of you out there and try your hand at a few stitches in our quilt. And the trapper's cabin. Tom will be out there in our trapper's cabin. And do you want to tell a little bit about that?
Is he, I'm assuming is he planning on the fur trading like he usually does
Oh,
for
I
the
would
kids?
imagine. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's something too, if you have small children, is really interesting. When you pay your admission fee up at the front gate, they give the children a piece of tanned fur. Once they get to the trapper's cabin, then they can take that fur in and they get to bargain for little treats or knick-knack things with the actual trapper. With the trading post guy, he'll say, oh, hey, you know, what do you think this is worth, and offer them something, and they have the chance to barter with him and, you know, negotiate and see if they can't get something more.
Exactly.
So that's something fun for the kids to do.
And this helps to show everyone what it was like back in the 1800s. They didn't have a lot of money, and what they did is they bartered with each other. So the canoe people would come up the river, and they might have a bolt of fabric for Mrs. Wakely, but she didn't have enough money to give to her to pay for that. So she might trade, she might barter a loaf of bread, maybe some cinnamon rolls, or something that she has that the canoeist would like. So that would be the barter. So we're teaching the young people about how to barter. Yes. Tell me about the site now is going to have a lot of vendors around, and they are from all over, actually.
Yes, they are, and this is the one and basically only event that we hold out there that there are vendors. So we do have Ma Wakely's Kitchen, so you can have that's like a food vendor. You can get food there. In addition to that, we usually have basket weavers, carvers. A couple years ago, we had a rope maker. You know, just all kinds of things like that. So you get to walk around and you get to see a lot of the different things that they did. You know, the rope person actually would let the kids kind of do a little piece of rope themselves on his equipment. So that teaches you things about that, because these days you go to the hardware store and say, oh, I want 50 feet of rope. Well, then you use twine and stuff, and you had to make your own. So
good news, he's coming back again, so he'll be out there.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we usually have a spinner, someone who's out there might be selling wool. Lots of times we have a soap maker, and she makes homemade soaps, and they're for sale. So from year to year, you never know what you might find out there. In addition to that, on Saturday night, we have a cook-off that they generally do every year. They sell bowls. If you buy a bowl for a certain price, then at the end of that day, when they do the cook-off judging, you get to sample all of the cookware, and you also get to help then judge which things you think are the best. And I'm not sure exactly, but from what I've been told, I guess on Saturday we will be selling the bowls inside the main Wakely house.
Oh, well, that'll be new.
Yeah, they usually do it outside, but according to our flyers, it says they're to be purchased in the house. So that's something that might change, but that's what we're anticipating. But that's always a good time, because the various vendors and the people that are out there are the ones that cook these meals, and you cook your dish either on the fire pit, on the cook stove, in the cabin, something like that, where you would cook out there, and then they are kind of in a competition. So it's kind of like a miniature potluck like thing, but you're competing with each other to find out who's got the best dish.
Oh, so we can actually go around and watch them cook our dinner.
Yeah, you'd be able to
Nice.
actually, there's usually some outside on the fire, sometimes out in the yard. There's just a lot of things to do. Every year it changes a little bit. I'm assuming the whip guys are going to be out there again this year.
Oh, yes.
They do whip cracking demonstrations out in the front lawn of Wakely. There's always so many things. You got the 3-bay shed. They usually have a children's activities in the woodworker shop. They talk about the ice house. And generally, I always make homemade ice cream. And that's for you to sample as well.
Indeed. And I believe that all of our guests can actually try and make their own ice cream. They can have a hand at cranking that crank and seeing how that works. Do you think that maybe we, people in the house, can get some new recipes for when we're out there, so we can
We
cook
can
something
definitely
new?
try.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. Now, you mentioned the soap maker. Brooke is one of our members of Historic Point Basse, and she will definitely be there. And she'll be working in the house on Saturday for a while. And then on Sundays, she'll be out there making her soap and having it all out there for y'all to try and watch her how that soap it amazes me how that soap turns from liquid to soap. And it happens so fast. She's so good at it. She's just whipping that thing.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, it's really soap. And it smells so pretty. I do like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do you think that these people can see when they come out to see us?
Well, I know there's always the schoolhouse, and we have the teachers there, and they tell the history of the schoolhouse. The schoolhouse is from later in history than 1840s, but it has a lot of really interesting things to see. You get to see how the kids, used to write on slates, have the little wooden desks, what they used to take their lunches to school with them. In addition to that, they usually tell a little bit about the history of what the school marms would be and what their responsibilities would be. It's not just necessarily teaching class. They had to kind of keep up on the schoolhouse themselves, make sure that the fire got started and that there was, water in the pitcher, etc. for the kids. And besides the challenge of teaching multiple ages and grades of kids all in one room.
Indeed. Oh, and what about that privy?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
always exciting for the new people that come out to Historic Point Basse. As out in the 1800s, they did not have running water in their homes. And so they had to go to the bathroom in an outhouse. And that's always exciting for the young people to go and find
if you don't just have the kids that say, oh, this is so horrible, because they don't know anything different, but that's what there was.
Yes.
And out on the other side of that, you also have the bunkhouse that's relatively new. So they usually have displays and things inside there.
Right. Now, earlier in this broadcast that we're doing today, they actually did their broadcast from the inside of the bunkhouse. So everyone got a chance to look at the inside of the bunkhouse, and they got to see all of the tools of the traveler that would stop at the bunkhouse to spend the night and maybe continue on his way up to Wausau, or he would stay there and actually help work at the Wakely site. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Now, I believe in the 3-bay shed this year, you're going to be able to make a dowel. It's a peg. When they didn't have enough money to have nails, you had to hold your boards together with something. And so they would make these round dowels. And the people out there will help you and show you how that you can make a dowel. And I believe you can actually take one home with you. You can make your own. There's also going to be a gentleman out there teaching you how to carve spoons from just the tree trunk. They cut it in a certain way, and then they get to the right kind of grain, and the next thing you know, after they get done carving, you have a wonderful spoon for us back in the house.
Yep, we have lots of the handmade cooking utensils that members have made in the house.
We do.
So that's something else you can, you know, see while you're there, the different things that we have.
Yes, and hanging on the wall is the different varieties of, in the house, different varieties of the cast iron cookware. And if you have a question regarding any of the cast iron cookware or any of the spatulas and the spoons, each spoon has a purpose, which I didn't know until I started Historic Point Basse. So that's all kinds of good things for you to see out there. So we do hope to see you out at Historic Point Basse. If you would like to, go onto our website, and our website is historicpointbasse, BASSE.com, and click on events, and you can go to the Pioneer Fest and check that all out. Once you get there, you can click on maps. And there's a up-to-date map there for you to print out at home so you know where everything is, kind of get a lay for the land before you come. And if you don't have a computer and printer, that's okay. We will give you a map when you get there. And oh, there's also going to be a menu for you to see Maweka's Kitchen. And that's out there on the website also, so you can get an idea of what you might like to eat before you actually go up there. But you know, again, if you don't have a printer, you don't have a computer, that's all right. Everything will be posted on posters out there, and there's lots of people out there to help you with that. So again, Historic Point Basse, Pioneer Fest, June 8th and 9th at Historic Point Basse. And if you don't know where that is, again on the website, there's a map on how to get you to Historic Point Basse. Thank you again, and we'll come out and see us.
See you there.